Hey Book Dragons, I'm so glad you joined me today. I'm going to be talking about authors that are new to me. And for this video, these are authors that I have recently encountered within the last couple of years. And I've only read one or maybe two books of theirs. So they're still relatively new to me. And I'm really excited about reading more of their books. So we're going to get right down to it. As you can see, I've got my trusty cat in my lap here. Ari has joined us for this video. We shall see how long that lasts, and my eyes are on. So let's get right to the list. And the first author on this list is Guy Gavriel Kay. I've only read one book by Guy Gavriel Kay so far, and that is Tigana. And it was okay for me. It wasn't the best book I've ever read, but I love the prose. I just really like the way he builds his world and the characters that he develops. So I'm very curious to read more, and I'm probably going to move on to The Lions of Al-Rassan next. I've heard that's a really great book to read as well. So I'm slowly getting into GGK, and I'm really excited for the possibilities there. The next author on this list is Blake Crouch. And I've become a huge fan of Blake Crouch. I want to read everything that he's written. I read Dark Matter and absolutely loved it. I read Recursion recently and absolutely loved that one. So if the rest of his books are as good as those are, I'm in for a real treat. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where I go with Blake Crouch. And I think my next book of his is probably going to be Upgrade, and then maybe I'll check out the Pines trilogy. So, yeah, very excited about it. The next author on this list is Steven Erikson, and I have only read Gardens of the Moon and Dead House Gates to completion. I almost DNF'd Dead House Gates, and I made it halfway through Memories of Ice, but I ended up temporarily DNFing that one, so I'm not counting that. So technically he's still new to me, and I still don't know if Steven Erikson is going to be for me. I really don't know if the Malazan Book of the Fallen is going to work for me. I'm still open. I'm going to try and finish Memories of Ice, maybe the next book, which I'm not sure what it is, and see how I feel, and then go from there. But I'm really on the fence with the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And, maybe Steven Erikson just isn't for me. I'm not sure. But he's still new to me. The next one on this list is R. Scott Baker. I have only read The Darkness That Comes Before, which is part of his Second Apocalypse world. And I was impressed with the prose. I really was intrigued by the world building. It's quite a challenging read, though. Not because of content, just because of the complexity of the world and the complexity of the thought processes that he puts into creating it. I'll be honest, guys, I didn't fully grasp everything in the first book until after I had finished the book, and I went and watched a video series on YouTube breaking down the first book. That's when it really started to click with me. And so this is another one that I'm not quite sure how it's going to go. I own all of the books on my Kindle, so at some point I hope to finish the series, but I just don't know. I guess we'll see how that goes. So that's another one I'm on the fence with, but I would say between Steven Erikson and R. Scott Baker, I'm more optimistic about R. Scott Baker, if that makes sense. I just feel like he's the kind of writer that I enjoy, whereas I'm still not sure about Steven Erikson. So yeah, R. Scott Baker, Second Apocalypse series. I hope to continue down that path. So the next one on this list is Patricia Meredith. Now, I encountered Patricia Meredith for the first time through the BookTube community, specifically Kayla over at Kay's Hidden Shelf. Just absolutely raved about her. And I love a good mystery. I love a good cozy mystery. And I read her book, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Taker, and was absolutely blown away. I absolutely loved it. I got the same feel from her book that I get from reading Agatha Christie, and that just did it for me, because you guys know I love Agatha Christie. So I went out and bought all of Patricia Meredith's books on my Kindle. And except for the newest one that she's just released, I still need to get that one. But the rest I own, and I can't wait to continue reading her books. They just have that nice, cozy mystery feel that I absolutely adore. And so I'm excited to continue reading more of her books. So yeah, check out Patricia Meredith if you like mysteries. She's a phenomenal writer. She really is. So we're moving on. And the next author on this list is Anthony Horowitz. Now, I've only read the Magpie Murders so far, but he's got a fairly large catalog. He's got a sequel to the Magpie Murders, or kind of a sequel, maybe not quite a sequel. And he's written other books like pastiches of Sherlock Holmes and things like that. And so I'm really excited to read more from Anthony Horowitz and see what some of his other books are like. I will get around to that eventually. Not a high priority for me, but I like him well enough to continue reading. So when it comes to mystery authors, I think my preference leans more toward Patricia Meredith, but I really like Anthony Horowitz as well. I think he's a good writer, and I'm anxious to see where the other books of his go. So the next author on this list, guys, is Robert Jackson Bennett. And I have only read The Tainted Cup. I recently read this. You can check out a review of the book on my channel if you want to. This book, guys, I was just absolutely blown away by. John over at Talking Story talks about having his hair blown back. This book blew my hair back. I think it blew his hair back as well. But it is such a great book, and it's a fantasy mystery botany punk. There's plants all over this world. It's so good. And this is my first time ever reading Robert Jackson Bennett. I've heard of him before. I have his book City of Stairs on my Kindle from way back in the day, but I've just never read it. And so this is my first time experiencing him. And I was so impressed by this book that I want to read the sequel as soon as it comes out. I also want to check out his Founders trilogy and other books that he's written. So I am going to be reading more Robert Jackson Bennett eventually. So just stay tuned. It'll be coming. So I'm going to set that there. The next author on this list is Laini Taylor. And I have only read the Dreamer and Muse duology, Strange the Dreamer, Muse of Nightmares, and I absolutely loved it, guys. It's one of my favorite series or favorite duologies, and it's just such a unique story, and she writes with such a unique flair that I think I want to read more of her books. And I know of a few of her books. I think Daughter of Smoke and Bone might be her series. I'm not exactly sure, but I do want to read more from her eventually, because I was really impressed with how well put together the Dreamer and Muse duology was. So if you guys have not checked this series out, you seriously need to. They are such good books. Okay. All right. So the next author on this list is Neal Shusterman, or Shusterman. I think it's Shusterman, but I could be wrong. And that is the Scythe trilogy. It's a quartet if you count Gleanings, which is a collection of short stories set in this world. But the main trilogy is the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. And guys, this was such a great series. I absolutely loved every single book in the series. The only one I haven't read yet is Gleanings, and I do plan to hopefully get to that before the end of the year. But this is a sci-fi, I wouldn't even call it a dystopia, it's more of a utopia. And I won't go into why I think it's more of a utopia, but, you know, it still kind of plays in the same pool as series like Hunger Games and stuff like that. But this is a more positive outlook on the world in some respects than those books are. So that's why I call it a utopia versus a dystopia. But Yeah, such a great series. And I want to try more books from Neal Shusterman after I finish reading Gleanings. So I know he's got a series out there with the first book, I think, is Unwind. He's got some other books as well. So I definitely want to read more from him. The next author on this list that's new to me is V.E. Schwab. And I've only read 2 books of hers so far. I've read A Darker Shade of Magic. Absolutely adored this book. I really loved the world, the magic system, the characters. Just really clicked with me. I haven't finished the trilogy yet. And now she's got a second trilogy that she's working on for it. So I really need to get my butt in gear and read this series, finish this series. But I also read Vicious, which is the first book in her Villains trilogy. So I need to get back and read more of that. In fact, I'm going to be buddy reading Vengeful in September. And I'm loving it, guys. I really love V. Schwab, and I can't wait to read more of her books. So, yeah, another author that really impressed me. All right, and guys, you might be surprised at this, but the next author on this list is Clive Barker. I have only read The Hellbound Heart and The Thief of Always, and both books were absolute bangers for me, guys. I absolutely love his writing style. I can't believe I never read any of his books before, I think it was last year, or maybe the year before when I first picked up one of his books. So he's very new to me still, and I've since purchased several books of his on my Kindle that I plan to read, like Weave World and Mr. Be Gone and stuff like that. So I'm excited to continue reading more of Clive Barker. All right, now guys, you may know that I am a huge fan of The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. A huge fan. I absolutely adore this book. It's probably ranked up there in my favorites of all time at this point. I recently did a reread of it on audiobook because the sequel is coming out this month, Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And I can't wait. I have it pre-ordered. It'll be on my doorstep. I will be reading it this month. And I just really, really like T.J. Klune's writing. So, if everything goes well with Somewhere Beyond the Sea, I will probably be reading all of his books, or at least most of them. There's several of his books that are on my list that I want to read, but I have not got around to yet. So, yeah, T.J. Klune is definitely one I'm keeping an eye out for. So the next author on this list is T. Kingfisher. And I recently read Nettle and Bone, and I quite liked it. It wasn't like one of the best books I've read, but it wasn't a poor book either. It was a really good story, and I enjoyed it enough to keep reading T. Kingfisher. A lot of their books really stand out to me, especially as far as cover design, and most of their books are short books as well, so that appeals to me because I'm always looking for shorter books to kind of wedge in between the longer beasts, right? So I'm really looking forward to reading more T. Kingfisher and see what I think, because I mean, I could end up not really caring for their style and just not reading anymore, but I just have a feeling that some of their other books are really going to work fantastically for me. So, T. Kingfisher. And speaking of beasts, J. Kristoff, Empire of the Vampire. Guys, this book is magnificent, and so is its sequel, Empire of the Damned. This was my first experience reading J. Kristoff, and if this is any indication of how good his writing is, I'm anxious to go back and look at his back catalog and read some of his older books. And I've heard mixed things about his other books, so I'm going in with an open mind but also a cautious mind. But this series, But this series just absolutely works perfectly for me. I love vampires, I love dark gothic fantasy, and this blends the two so well. I just absolutely love it. So, Jay Kristoff is one that I'm going to be looking out for more for, and hopefully, maybe by next year, we'll have the third book in this series. I think it's only going to be a trilogy. I could be wrong, but I'm anxious to find out. All right, and so, guys, the final author on this list today, and this is by no means exhaustive. I'm probably missing authors that are new to me, didn't make this list, but these are the ones that really stick out to me. And the last author is Jen Williams, author of the Winnowing Flame trilogy. The first book is The Ninth Reign. And guys, this was a really fun story. It's a very unique world, unique creatures, unique characters. I'm really intrigued by all that's going on in this world. It only recently got hardcover releases through the Broken Binding. For the longest time, I think it was just in paperback through the UK. There weren't even ebooks at the time. She's kind of one of those hidden gems. And I found out about this through Elliot Brooks, through watching her channel, because she raved about Jen Williams. And I decided, oh, well, I'll read it, see what I think, and I really liked the first book. So, I have the entire set, and I hope to finish this trilogy at some point in the near future. And Jen Williams is definitely one I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. I know she has a new series that she's written that I am a little bit curious about, but I'm going to wait and see how I feel about this first. So, still kind of on the fence with her, but I'm leaning more towards I like this author and I want to read more. So, yeah. So that is my list, guys. Let me know in the comments who some of your new to you authors are. I would love to talk with you about that. Let me know if you've read any of these that I mentioned in this video. And let's see if we have common tastes. Let's see if we have other things to talk about since we've read some of these. And also let me know if you found some new gems that you would like to take a look at and see if it fits your fancy. Until next time, guys, make sure you read more books. I'll talk with you soon. And let me give a huge shout out today to all my patrons. I really appreciate all you do to support my channel.